This is the Multifaith Matters podcast. I'm your host, John Moorhead. Well, this is the podcast for Multifaith Matters. I am the host, John Moorhead, and I'm privileged today to have as a guest Dr. Celucien Joseph, affectionately called Dr. Lou. And to keep from butchering his first name, I will probably just call him Dr. Lou for the rest of our conversation. And he is an award-winning author and a well-regarded Haitian-American author, scholar, and researcher. By training, he is an intellectual historian, literary scholar, and a theologian. Currently, he serves as professor and chair of the English department at San Jacinto College. He is a prolific writer, and a few of the books that relate to today's conversation that he and I are going to have include Revolutionary Change in Democratic Religion, Christianity, Vodou, and Secularism, Vodou in the Haitian Experience, a Black Atlantic Perspective, and Vodou in Haitian Memory, the Idea and Representation of Vodou in Haitian Imagination. Dr. Lou, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you, John. Thanks for the invitation.
It's great. As I mentioned before we started recording, I was doing a Google search, basically to go back a little bit. I am fascinated by, in American evangelicalism, there's this fascination with alleged former occultist testimonies. There are people who build ministries saying, I was a former occultist. There's a gentleman who claims to be a former Santeria practitioner, and he keeps calling himself a Satanist. And I thought, I would really like to address not only that topic, but like Santeria and Vodou and so on, so that people get a more informed understanding of these traditions. And I came across a paper, the American Academy of Religions, that was promoted that you're going to be giving this November in 2023, Vodou and Christianity in Interreligious Dialogue and the Roots of Religious Disagreement. And I was fascinated because, as you know, in America, at least amongst evangelicals, there are a handful of traditions that we cram together. We call them dark and evil and the occult, and the idea of dialogue with these traditions simply doesn't come on the radar. So I'm glad to have you here today so you can help us unpack this, to understand better, and to learn how dialogue might be possible amongst these traditions. So thank you again for coming on. Can you share a little bit about your background, your education, and your passion that you have in relation to Haitian religion?
Yes, John. My name is Celucien Joseph. I was born and grew up in Haiti. I came to the States when I was 15 years old, in the state of Florida, to be specific. So I went to school here for high school, spent my college here, but I did my PhD in literary studies, my first PhD at UT Dallas, University of Texas at Dallas, in English literary studies. I also attended seminary. I have a Master of Divinity and Theological and Biblical Studies. And I also have a master's degree in New Testament studies. And I have another PhD in theology and ethics from the University of Pretoria, South Africa. So in terms of my research and teaching interest, I'm a specialist on Haitian Vodou, theological ethics, anthropology, Christianity in Haiti, and African-American lit, and Black intellectual traditions.
Wonderful. Can you help unpack some of the terminology? Folks are probably familiar with the term voodoo. Places like New Orleans come to mind. I had the privilege of visiting there and picking up a little voodoo doll, but then there's Vodou as we're using it. And you said before we started recording, there's hoodoo. So help us out with the terminology and the differences here.
Yeah, let's begin. Now, the term Vodun, Vodoun, is from the Fon language, Fon. That's in West Africa. So the people, Vodou has an African, West African origin. So it was not invented in Haiti or in New Orleans. Now, Vodou, Vodou, right? Okay. Vodou, Vodoun. This is the religion that is practiced in Haiti, also in Dominican Republic, and he has a different form in Brazil. It's known as candomblé, and also there's Dominican voodoo, VU, DU with the acute accent. There's also Obia. Those are African-based religions that the slaves introduced in the diaspora as early as 1506. And so when they came to what they so-called the New World, they brought with them their faith, their religious traditions, and of course, hoodoo, which is also practiced in New Orleans, is a form of magic. But and for our conversation, we're talking about Vodou, Vodou, as a religious tradition that is practiced in Haiti, in many Caribbean and Latin American countries.
Would you say a little bit about the importance of Vodou as an African diaspora tradition to one's sense of identity and retaining that sense of identity and connection with the past? I think one of the weaknesses of Christianity in the West is because we emphasize Christianity and religion in general as a package of beliefs that one accepts and discards without realizing how important the identity questions are. How important is the identity question to Haitian Vodou?
Well, this is an interesting question. Now, the Haitian expression of Vodou is a little bit different. Let me explain what I mean. For some Haitian scholars, especially those who are advocates of Vodou religion, the tradition is fundamentally connected to Haitian cultural identity. For example, some would speak about Haiti as a Vodou nation. So they do not make a distinction between the Haitian culture, Haitian nationality, and Haitian identity. So they see Vodou, everything, whether we're talking about identity, nationality, culture, Vodou embraces it all. And of course, you may have heard the common saying, although Haiti is a predominantly Catholic nation, but it's 100% Vodou. And of course, there's an element of truth about this, right? Because almost in every Haitian family, you will find a Vodou practitioner. So Vodou is intrinsically connected somewhat to the identity of the Haitian people.
One of the interesting things in looking at American evangelicalism is one of the things, and in American missions, is a fear and distaste of syncretism, that they don't like the blending of religious traditions. But I remember taking my world religions course under Terry Muck of Asbury Seminary at the time, and he said for religious studies scholars, they have a saying, syncretism happens. It's just a phenomenon. We like to think of religions as pure traditions, and you don't want to mix them. But what you're talking about in Haiti with the Catholicism and the Vodou is this kind of syncretistic practice is fairly common. Is that correct?
Yeah, but here's what happened, John. Here's what your people should understand. You see, Vodou did not become syncretized during the time in slavery in Saint-Domingue. Saint-Domingue is the former name for the French colonies that existed in Haiti. Even in Africa, before the transatlantic slavery in European colonization, the African people, especially in West Africa, embraced Christianity. While they embraced Christianity, they syncretized Christianity with their indigenous faith. That happened also, in the first 600 years of Christianity. Uh, Africa gave birth to Christian theology, the great African theologians, as we know, the great doctrine of Trinity, who Christ is, right? That began in Africa. For the first 600 years, right? We know Christianity took roots in Africa. So the same way when Islam began in Africa in Islam began, sometime between 7th and 8th century, but the tradition, Islam was Africanized, right? So the Africans practiced Islam. They said within their own cultural lens, and that happened for Christianity in Africa. So Vodou, Catholicism, was syncretized even before the slaves came to the Americas, right? And of course, in Haiti, in the context of Saint-Domingue, there is a greater form of syncretization, right? Where Christian theology, Catholic saints were intermingled with what's called the Vodou law or spirit. This is the term that is used to refer to the spirits or Vodou pantheon in the religion. So some scholars use the term symbiosis to explain the religious dynamic between Vodou in the context of colonial Saint-Domingue and Catholicism.
That's helpful. Thank you for helping shed some light on that. Can you, there's a lot of stereotypes and simplistic thinking about what Vodou is. Can you, and this is a tall order, can you just sketch some of the most significant elements? What is Vodou all about?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay. Vodou is not what you see in Hollywood movies, right? This is not it. Vodou is a religion where there is a priesthood, there's sacrifice, Vodou as an ethical system, Vodou as a theological system. Vodou is a viable religion, just like Christianity, just like Islam, just like Buddhism, just like any religious system that we know about. But Vodou is very distinctive, just like any religion, right? There's the veneration of the spirits, what's called loi. Now, the spirits in the Vodou tradition are said to be created by God Himself to serve as mediators or between God and human beings. So one cannot have access to God unless one passes through the Spirit. So the spirits, there are 401 spirits in the Vodou tradition, right? There are more, but but that's the consensus, right? So the spirits in the Vodou tradition are different facets, right? There are different aspects of God's attributes. Because each Vodou spirit, for example, there's one called Ezreali. She is the symbol of love, the divine love. There's also one by the name of Papa Legba in the Cuban tradition, Santeria. He is known as Elegba. Elegba. In Haiti, it's Leba. So he is the God of the crossroads. He's the God who reveals the very mind of God. He's the God who knows the thoughts of God. Without Legba, there is no communication between God and human beings. Now, as a Christian theologian, you might have an idea where I'm going, right? The role of Jesus Christ as mediator between God. Yes, I think I was muted for a second. Okay, go ahead, John.
What are some of the more significant stereotypes that come to mind when people think about voodoo that we should just let go?
Well, that's a good question. Now, there's actually a tradition. Okay. Now, some of the stereotypes, we inherit those stereotypes from colonial Christianity or the colonial world. Let me give you a brief history to help your listeners understand. Now, there was this famous colonial historians at Saint-Domingue called Moreau de Saint-Méry, a French historian. He was born in 1750 and he died in 1819. He was probably the first one to describe Vodou in the colonial context. So he defined Vodou as an African dance, right? Danse nègre, African dance. Then later on, he defines Vodou as a superstition, right? And then he also associates Vodou with what he calls bizarre practices, right? But there was another French colonial thinker by the name of Drouin de Bercy. He was a plantation owner at Saint-Domingue. This guy defines Vodou as sorcery. So this term is very important because this is a stereotype in our culture. He defines Vodou as sorcery, has a series of fetishes. Okay, so in the US society or in the West, we become inheritors of those misunderstandings associated with the Vodou tradition. So Vodou as a form of sorcery, Vodou has fetishes, Vodou has magic. Those need to go.
Well, you sent me an article to help prepare me for this, and I appreciate that. And one of the things that you mentioned in that article is that the Christian tradition in Haiti is linked to Afrophobia and Vodouphobia, and maybe it connects a little bit with what you just finished talking about. But can you say a little bit about that?
Yes. What most people do not know, in the context of Haiti, the Haitian culture, the Vodou tradition or Vodouism, that's the name that is used in Creole to refer to those who practice the religion. Now, there has been 3 to 4 major what's called superstitious campaigns against Vodou practitioners. The first one took place from 1896 to 1900. And the second one, the most important one, took place between 1939 until 1942. Let me tell you what happened, John. especially in the second one. Okay, right after the U.S. Military left Haiti, what happened from 1915 to 1934? The United States invaded Haiti and occupied Haiti for a long time. Okay, so the the second anti-Vodou campaign, in the first phase, the Haitian state, in support of the Catholic Church, burned Vodou temples. They seized sacred objects of worship. And many Vodou practitioners lost their lives. In fact, the Haitian state created specific laws, okay, under the president of Elie Lescaut, to ban the practice, what they call superstitious practices, which of course they associated with the Vodou religion. And of course, like I mentioned before, Catholicism, the Catholic Church, was the protagonist of these campaigns. But when it comes to Protestant Christianity, although Protestant Christians were not actively involved in those campaigns that I mentioned, but the practice, when I say they, I'm referring to Christian evangelists, pastors, theologians, Christian writers. They practice their own version of Vodouphobia and street preaching, Christian literature, Christian preaching, uh, uh, what's called crusades they would hold in the streets of Haiti. So you have a partnership, a historic partnership between the Haitian state and the church to persecute Vodou practitioners.
What has the Protestant and evangelical approach to Vodou in Haiti been? I have a feeling it's going to be very similar to the kinds of approaches we take to minority religions in America.
Well, I'll tell you, it's very contentious, John, to say the least. Here's what happens. Uh, so let me put my historian hat now, glasses. We have to go back to history, to August 1791. This is a historic moment, a watershed moment in Haitian history. According to tradition, the African slaves met at a plantation called Bois Caïman, Cayman Plantation. This is where excuse me, it was at night. They met together to plan their liberation. But at that night, some tradition tell us they held a Vodou ceremony, a Vodou ritual. Now, Protestant Christians have a different perspective about it, right? This is what they say. They said that when the African slaves met at the Bois Caïman slave plantation, they dedicated the country of Haiti to the devil himself. So they made a pact with the devil. You may have heard that from what's his name? He just passed. um, the famous Christian evangelist who said Haiti, the earthquake that happened in Haiti was because
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Pat
uh,
Robertson.
Pat Robertson.
Yes.
Now, this idea did not begin with Pat Robertson. Haitian Protestants, Haitian evangelicals have been saying that for years. I can remember when I was a little boy in Haiti, when I used to go to, my mom would take me to mission trips in different parts of the country, would take me to VBS, Bible school, right? I would frequently hear this narrative. Haiti is cursed because the country was dedicated in August 1791 to the devil.
Hmm.
So that's the first attitude from Protestant Christians. Now, interestingly, when we talk about the Protestant tradition in Haiti, uh, well, the major denominations include, for example, Baptist, uh, Pentecostals, Methodists, you name it. So all those traditions, Christian denominations, are united to counter the Vodou tradition. So there's a unifying factor against Vodou among Christians of the Protestant tradition. They also say, John, Vodou, they see Vodou as a social problem. Protestant Christians say Vodou is fundamentally a social problem in the Haitian society that divides the Haitian nation and causes social alienation in the country, right? They also mention Vodou is responsible for Haiti's underdevelopment. They also see Vodou as a moral problem, right? For example, the character of the Vodou law, of the Vodou spirit. They see those spirits do not embody what we would call virtuous, right? Virtuous character or good virtues in the Christian sense. But the greatest problem, okay, when Protestants talk about Vodou is a theological one. For example, the Protestant theological worldview is so, there's such a good divide. The way Protestants, for example, think about God, the doctrine of Christ, sin, uh, evil in the world. There's a great divide between their conviction and what is professed in the Vodou tradition.
How does that Protestant and evangelical approach, how does that compare? You mentioned in your article a counter narrative. How have the Catholics responded to that? Obviously differently.
No, Catholicism has been for many years the official religion of Haiti since 1860, when the Haitian government signed what's the term they use? I would say they signed an agreement with the Holy See for Catholicism to take over, for example, Haiti's education. For everything was regulated by the church. Now, those same issues that I mentioned to you, same concerns, a large segment in the Catholic Church has held the same beliefs. However, there has been some tremendous progress, right, and Haitian Catholicism because, excuse me, because of the dynamics that exist between Haitian Vodou and Haitian Catholicism, right? So Protestant Catholics are more tolerable towards Vodou than Protestant Christians.
Is that similar to, I remember in seminary taking my history of Christian missions course and being impressed, particularly by Catholic missions when it came to the Jesuits and their willingness to enculturate the gospel. Does that kind of thing follow through in Haiti?
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. The idea of enculturation has since late 1950s, right? He has been a movement in Haitian Catholicism, and where many priests advocated for what we call today, they called for an inter-religious dialogue between Vodou practitioners and Catholic. Now, as you may have known, or your listeners may have known, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, a former Catholic priest, was also elected twice as president of Haiti. He was the one who made Vodou as an official religion in Haiti. So this is very important. This is a Catholic priest legally made Vodou as an official religion.
Yeah, that's a huge step. A Protestant would never do that.
Oh, never, 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 never.
Now,
and
go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
For Protestants, we think we boil everything down to theology, right? But what are the barriers, the points of conflict between Protestant Christianity and Haiti, in addition to theological and worldview disagreements?
Well, here's what happens. See, when Protestantism came to Haiti in 1816, when President Alexander Pétion invited Quaker missionaries and British missionaries to Haiti, Vodou thinkers, this is what they say. The white missionaries brought with them the Western culture. And the Western culture, okay, created, or Protestant, let me say Protestant, Western Protestantism, let me use that term, divided the Haitian people. It demonized the African cultural practices and traditions in Haiti. So Protestantism created an alienation, separation, division in Haiti. For example, let me give you a practical example. There was a time Protestant Christians could not even play the drums in Protestant churches because in the Vodou religion, the drum is the most fundamental object of worship. So anything that is associated with Vodou, any object that are Haitian cultural objects, Protestant Christians rejected everything, right? They rejected everything. So no drums, even the traditional dress the hat, even the shirt. I'm talking about traditional clothes in Haiti. Protestant Christians would not wear those clothes, even certain colors. They would not dress certain way because they're part of the Vodou tradition. So the conflict, John, is very deep. It's more than a theological problem. It's also a cultural issue. It relates to identity, how Protestant Christians in Haiti see themselves, you know, and also in reference to politics, right? And that's another issue. And most Protestant Christians in Haiti would not engage in politics because they see themselves as citizens of heaven. Again, this is a complaint Vodou advocates, okay, voiced against Protestantism. There's so much to talk about.
Oh, yes, yes, definitely. Now, I mentioned at the top that I was intrigued and surprised to find your American Academy of Religion presentation that's coming up on interreligious dialogue between Christianity and Vodou. Is this going on now, and how long has this dialogue been going on? Where has it been taking place?
Well, John, historically, there has not been what we might call a candid, open, interreligious dialogue between Christians and Vodouism in Haiti. There have been some attempts, but they're nothing that important that brought about radical changes between those two traditions. Now, the Catholic Church has tried back in 1950. I mentioned 1950, 1958, 59, but in the Protestant side, that has not been a case. In fact, the paper that you have read, the abstract, is part of a book that I'm co-editing. This will be the first text on interreligious dialogue between Christians and Vodou practitioners.
What's the title of that?
It's called Vodou and Christianity and Interreligious Dialogue. It will be published by Ripon Sachs Publishers.
Okay. Is it due out this year?
It's hopefully, I hope before SBL, before the SBL ATL conference. Yeah. The book cover is out, which is great. So I'm waiting for the proofs. So I will be busy in 2 weeks from now, going over the proofs.
I look forward to seeing that. I've been there. I've worked with Whitf and Stock before, and they're very good publishers. So with your work, if there hasn't been much, especially on the Protestant side, by way of this dialogue, are you trying to help prepare the soil, if you will, to get more folks involved in this kind of dialogue?
Yeah, this dialogue is very important, John, for many reasons. Okay, I'm trying to help whatever I can do. As a Haitian, second as a Christian theologian. I think this dialogue is necessary for many reasons. First, it creates the conflict, the tension between the two major dominant traditions in Haiti is too wide, too deep. It causes too many problems in the country. Secondly, Vodouism and Christians need to come together. to help build the country. Third, and maybe I would elaborate more about this, there has to be, Haitians should look at themselves first as Haitians, not as Christians, Protestant Christians, as Muslims, as uh, Catholics, as atheists, as humanists. They're all Haitians. I think this is the common denominator that should bring all Haitians together. So I'm trying to help in that regard.
Well, can you help folks who might be interested in learning more? What suggestions, what wisdom would you have about ways in which Protestant Christians, evangelicals can be more productive in exchanges about their ideological and theological differences?
Yeah. So this is a good question. So let me let me begin with the whole concept of dialogue, John. You see, dialogue, I would argue, is the most fundamental human attitude towards problem solving. Okay? Because it involves engaging one another in communication or conversation. So we might be able to find a common ground on complex issues. What you use the term ideologies and religious differences. So I mean, but for a dialogue to take place, there has to be first a mutual recognition that every person, every human being has the right to speak freely and to express particular opinions, whether it's religious, political, educational, intellectual, whatever you want it. Since our focus is on religion, right? So on matters concerning human activities. For example, dialogues also affirms that every person's point of view on any topic of discussion might be different, offensive to others, but it's necessary. So I'm thinking, I mean, Vodouism and Christians have a lot in common, John, theologically. For example, even the concept of God and Vodou, Vodouism and Christians believe there is one God, and that God is the creator, is the supreme sovereign being. Christians and Vodouism also believe that God created human beings in his image. So we are image bearers of the divine. Also, Vodou and Christians believe in the movement, the constant movement of the spirit. And of course, they differ how they interpret the work of the spirit, but the spirit of God is present in both traditions. He's the one who inspires people. He's the one who communicates. He's the one who empowers people. He's the revealer of the secrets of God. Also, Vodou and Vodouism and Christians believe in the problem of evil in the world, right? They believe that there has to be some kind of divine intervention for us to cope with the problem of evil. So, as Protestant Christians, right? Protestant Christian emphasize the agency of the human will. This is also a property in the Vodou tradition. So there are so many common things or points of common that Christians and Vodou practitioners have in common. So those points of common are part of their traditions. So the dialogue must begin with what they already share in common, right? The common ground. Okay, it's necessary to have an effective, transformative interreligious dialogue between the two traditions.
Well, this question came to me after I was researching your work, and I
Mhm.
found a very interesting article you wrote. So my question is, how can American and Western theologians benefit by greater familiarity with the Caribbean theological tradition, its theologians and its biblical scholars?
Yeah, this is a great question, John. But I do want to add a few more things before I answer that
Sure.
question.
Okay.
I want to be more practical in terms of interreligious dialogue. For example, I think there are many ways Christians and Vodouism can engage in active interfaith dialogue. For example, to my belief, there is not an interfaith professional organization in Haiti or even in the Haitian diaspora. So there needs to be one, not just one. There needs to be several, and there has to be both traditions have to organize, let's say, a summer camp every year to train young people in interreligious literacy and interfaith conversation about Vodou and Christianity. We must start with the young people early so they can have respect for both traditions. And I'm also thinking about the importance of developing, okay, a, let's say, an interfaith curriculum, right? Grounded on religious sources, resources, and tools connected to both Christians and Vodouism. There could be, for example, let's say a yearly conference on interfaith engagement. So there are many opportunities, right, to start this dialogue. So now let me transition to your question. So your question, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah. After looking at another article that you wrote,
Yes.
my question is, how can American and Western theologians benefit by greater familiarity with the Caribbean theological tradition, its theologians, its biblical scholars?
Well, I think I want to talk about responsibility, right? From Western theologians, American and Western theologians. Uh, how can, they benefit? But I think before we talk about benefiting, right, it's important for American and Western theologians to read books, for example, by Caribbean theologians, to assign books written by Caribbean theologians and religious scholars. If you're teaching a course, for example, on world religion, when I was in seminary, I went to Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. I remember taking a class on world religion, and the professor who got his PhD in religious studies from Duke University never mentioned any African-based religions, right? So it's important if you are teaching a course on, let's say, on intercultural theology or a course on mission. It's important. It's important to read the reflections, the theological reflections, the intellectual reflections by Caribbean religious scholars and theologians. Also, quote them in your work, cite them, engage their ideas, invite them to conferences. And I published a book last year, John. It's called it's a long title. It's called Theological wow, I forgot even my own title. It's published by Ripon Stock. Theological Education for Human Flourishing.
Okay.
You know, so it came out in April 2022, where I address those concerns, the importance for American Western theologians to have conversations, theological conversations, intellectual conversations, not only with Caribbean theologians, but also with non-Western theologians. As we know, I mean, this is a problem. I remember, I mean, oh my gosh, I spent 15 years studying theology. My undergraduate is in theology. I have a Master of Divinity in theology. I have another master's degree in New Testament studies. I have a PhD in theology and ethics, John. But guess what? The theological training that I received in those theological schools did not prepare me to engage other scholars. Yet they prepare you to be critical, but not to be active thinkers, right? It's like they prepare you to be afraid of those traditions, right? If you have to engage those traditions, that, well, you have to engage them with a hermeneutics of suspicion, right? So, and they do not. Again, I'm speaking. I don't want to generalize every theological school in the United States. You know, I was trained by, in a predominantly conservative evangelical seminary, Southern Baptist Seminary. And look, I'm glad for the wonderful theological pastoral training that I received, but he has its own shortcomings. I think this is what's missing, and this is important, John, for the future of democracy in the United States, right? It's also important for civic engagement, right? Because theological education could be served as a tool, as an instrument, okay, to improve our democratic system, okay, to enhance human relationships, human dynamics, right? Again, we can use theology as a tool for the common good, but we must engage non-Western traditions, because this country, the Western world, not just the United States, I'm talking about France, England, Germany, every day they're becoming more multicultural. In fact, this is the title of your podcast, Multifaith Podcast. So this is very important. The future of democracy lies in a honest, candid engagement with other traditions.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. Well, we could talk for hours, and there's a whole bunch of stuff we could talk about, but sometimes I like to give my guests the opportunity to say, well, what is the question that you wish I would have asked? What are some parting thoughts that you would like to share with listeners and viewers?
Wow. John, as a Christian theologian, as a Haitian-American, at the beginning, I told you I came here when I was 15 years old. I'm 45 years old. But I tell you what, John, it's more like a comment. American Protestant evangelicals in many regards, right, have not been doing a good job in Haiti. Now, and I want your listeners to understand where I'm coming from. I did not say they have not done any good job. No, that's not what I'm saying. In fact, many Christian organizations from the United States have been providing food, shelter, education for the Haitian people for many years. But excuse me, the way missionaries, Christian missionaries from the United States and from the West, present the gospel to the Haitian people has not been helpful. Okay? In many regards, their presentation, their rhetoric has not helped to create a unified Haiti. So we need to switch our approach to the way we share Jesus Christ with people. I think that's a religious right, and this is deep in the Christian tradition, for example. Although Vodou practitioners do not believe that. Vodou practitioners do not do that. It's not part of the Vodou tradition, right? As a person who's advocating for multicultural faith, for inter-religious dialogue, I respect the distinctives of every religious tradition, whether we're talking about Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Confucianism, you name it. Okay? But you cannot present the gospel to a people to make him hate their culture, to make him hate or even have doubt about their identity. Jesus signifies love. In fact, the Bible says God is love. Love is the very essence of God. It's impossible for God not to love. It's impossible. So when Christians go to Haiti, Protestant Christians, they need to present God as a God of love, not a God who comes to condemn, to demonize a people because of their religious traditions. In fact, God, right? The DNA of God is in every religious tradition. God's presence is every religious tradition, whether we're talking about Vodou, Islam, Hinduism, Confucianism, you name it. God is there. God is not absent. So this is very important. This is just a message for Christian missionaries.
Yeah. Well, what you just said, I had Acts 17 in my back of my mind when you said that, Paul's sermon on Mars Hill, that God is not far from anyone. So I think you're correct. So, well, Dr. Lou, I want to thank you so much for, I can't wait for that book to come out. Once it does come out, I'll go back. This will be published, obviously, before the book comes out. We'll add that into the program notes, and I want folks to look at the program notes for a link to where they can find more about what you're doing and links to your books. Thank you so much for coming on and helping this audience to understand more about Vodou and the dialogue between Vodou and Christianity.
Thank you, John, for the invitation. I appreciate your work. You're doing a wonderful work.
Well, thank you again for coming on. This is the podcast for Multifaith Matters. Thanks to everybody for watching and listening. Until our next episode.